It's just taking its sweet old time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, show number 91. 91. We're clicking up to the three-digit number here all too soon. Number 100 coming in July 7th, I think, is when it lands. But
rapidly
with me,
catching up to Robert's age. So.
Yeah. Oh, and he's not here to do a thing about it. And with no, I thought you were talking about Tim, actually.
No.
So with that, we are with Mr. Robert Cole, my eminent co-host from Rock Cheetah. Hello, Mr. Robert. My name is Lauren Gray, Hospitality Digital Marketing. And I was told that they would love to hear a little bit of a prelude of what we might be talking about today, so that they know what they're going to be listening for. So I took this to heart as a suggestion.
That would require planning, Lauren, of the session.
I know, right? Planning of the session. But
so this is a change of format. Okay,
good. Format, yeah. Well, we don't have a guest co-host this week. One, because I was in Hawaii last week and I didn't really chase anybody down for this. And the second was I was in Hawaii last week and didn't chase anybody down for this. So today's topic, some of the things I like to throw around, and a couple of these things weren't actually on the list I sent over, Robert. One was talk a little bit about Fred. Fred with Google. Fred is the first. Now, Google changes its algorithms on a regular basis, but this one was big enough and cumulative enough that they actually gave it a name. Happened this past March, this last month, month before, and it's called Fred. And there's some very direct impacting things that happen in hospitality because of it. We'll talk about it. The other is Snapchat. Next month is releasing its new usable by all marketing plan where you can do marketing on Snapchat, just for Snapchat, where before it was only allowed to the big dogs. Now we can actually do it ourselves. Well, I have audio and another item. Anyway, those are two of the things there. Also, we're going to talk about paid search attribution models. Is your hotel doing it wrong? An article that came out of Travel Tripper, which is kind of connected to Fred, which we'll talk about. You have some great stats about Facebook's first quarter that you shared with us. We're going to be talking a little bit about Skyscanner and what it thinks we can learn from the Chinese travel market. And a few other items that we're going to grab bag out of. But those are some of the highlights of some of our conversations today. So, Mr. Robert, I think, given the fact that you brought the Facebook to the table first, you chat about that while I get the rest of our show powered up on the other platforms. And let's do a little chit chat about how Facebook is taking over the world and making all the money. So go right ahead.
Well, they are making all the money, but I thought it was interesting to juxtapose Expedia.
What's wrong?
I'm hearing. Are you hearing that?
Nope.
Or is that me?
That might be.
Hang on just a second. Oh, I have got some sort of thing that is I found it. I hate audio pop-ups.
So you're listening to other voices again, are you? You know the doctor helped you with that.
All this music starts, and it's like, what the heck is going on?
The doctor said to ignore the other voices and music. He said, don't pay attention to them. Listen to the one voice, okay?
Yeah, I couldn't see my face on the screen, but it was probably perplexed and confused. But
nothing different than normal.
Please, digital advertisers do not have auto-running videos with audio turned on. It is so annoying. And for your product, I will never buy it, no matter if you're giving away gold bars for free, because I hate it.
Oh my goodness!
But. Yes. Anyway, going back to the original question, yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to juxtapose kind of Expedia's earnings report versus Facebook and a little bit on Google. Priceline and TripAdvisor don't report till next Tuesday. But for the first quarter of 2017, Expedia had pretty good numbers. That stayed room nights were up 12%. And they mentioned that because of the shift in Easter year over year, that was lower than it should have been. But booked room nights were up 18%, and their revenue was up 15%. Adjusted EBITDA up 18%. So those are good, strong, year over year numbers. Now let's compare that to Facebook, or actually, why don't we do Google first? Google's revenues were up. Again, we said Expedia was up 15%. Google's revenues were up 22%, which is certainly a large number for a company that size. But the very interesting thing about Google was their average cost per click was down 19%. So what seems to be happening is that Google's either lowering or people are bidding less on the cost per click, but they're using the platform more. So I think this is something that Google is supporting, so they can basically go and, I believe, squeeze out a lot of the other smaller players, because when you do that, all of a sudden your ROIs on your return on ad spend start really jumping if you can lower your CPC. But that brings us to Facebook. Facebook's advertising revenue was up 51% year over year for the same quarter, first quarter 2016 versus first quarter 2017. They added 57 million daily active users, not year over year. That was quarter to quarter. So between the fourth quarter of 2016 and the first quarter of 2017, they added 57 million daily active users. These aren't just people registering, these are people on the platform. But as crazy as those numbers are, the really amazing one I look at was the free cash flow generated by Facebook, I believe in the first quarter. I do not believe this is an annual number. This is a first quarter number, was $3.8 billion.
And yet the street was still not happy with them.
Yeah, well, yes, but with numbers like that, when your advertising revenue is growing more than 50%, you're adding tens of millions of people. I mean, you consider that's about a sixth of the population of the U.S. And again, in all fairness to Facebook, that wasn't in most of it. Well, I think there's maybe 6 million or something was from the U.S. I think it was like 31 million from it was predominantly Europe and Asia Pacific, but I can't remember. It was 20 million, I think, in Europe and 30 some million in Asia Pacific. But those are daunting numbers, and if that's where all the people are, that's maybe where all the advertising revenue is going to go.
Well, we know that to be a fact in the sense of where the revenue spend is going on right now, because everybody's talking about the fact that and Tim brought this up, that large-scale operations, it made news about 6 months ago that some of the large players, like the Monsantos and so forth, were dialing back their advertising because they didn't need the targeting that social or the Facebook provided for them. They needed, as Tim pointed out, they don't need to sell one widget. They need to sell 1 million widgets. So it's not about targeting an individual as it is targeting in mass. So that made news. But for everybody else, looked at Facebook and said, hey, it's cheaper, more focused, and we get more of a direct connection with our guest or with our customer guest than we do by just broadcasting advertising on other platforms. So to that end, you can see where the dollar value has gone up and why people are standing to it. The discussion that I'd like
and I would say
is the functionality of what people are using it for, because they're not doing a very good job of it in some cases.
Right, with broad-based, broadcast marketing, where yes, all these large consumer package group companies need to attract a lot of people, but the bottom line is you need to resonate with relevant messages. And if you can't do that, you're in trouble these days. You need to speak to people, and you see the big misses like, Kendall Jenner and Pepsi sort of thing. Just really big budget, high profile, and just completely tone deaf, not getting what the audience at all is looking for, and then getting a lot of ridicule for it, which is not. I think there passes a point where the people who say, any form of exposure is positive, is positive for a brand. Not so much. I don't think United Airlines or American Airlines or Delta Airlines, with people having problems on planes, is a really great thing for the industry or those individual brands.
I agree with it. I mean,
again, the targeting is important.
Yeah, I think also too is that people misunderstand. There's a lot of people that are just translating their market strategy into social platforms, thinking that's what they need to do.
Right.
And with social, it's a matter of literally rethinking what your purpose is on that platform. It's not about a hard sell. It's not about rate and availability or call to action, as it is opening the door for action, but dialoguing and creating a conversation and a trust. We've gone over this lots of times as we talk about the usability of social, that it's not about walking into a group of people and saying, hey, I sell hotel rooms for $129 this weekend if you're interested. And people are like, that's what we're talking about. You have to listen to.
Think of it as it's a cocktail reception. Right. Yeah, you don't walk in and go, hi, would you guys like to buy this stuff from me? And it's like, what go away is
Yeah.
probably the response you'd get in real life. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's a pretty good litmus test for how to do it in social. And yeah, a lot of brands get it very wrong.
Yeah, and also and we've had this discussion before. We talked about the changing value of what brand is. You run a risk. We've come to see in some of these large scale things where Coca-Cola wants you to feel good, and some of these other brands are all about the experience that it is supposed to create. They want to identify with an emotion or a feeling or a slice in time or something like this. And the risk is that when you stumble like Pepsi stumbled. It not only is massively rebounding back on you in a negative, but it's also reaffirming us to that it's at the end of the day, it's a beverage. You've lost all of that connection you were thinking you were doing about feel good and happy thoughts, and this is my thing that I do to reward myself, and all these other things they've tried for. And instead, it's
Right.
you know what? It's a soda can. It doesn't solve police facing off with protesters. Okay, it does. It's not that thing. Um,
Right.
so to that end
Now,
with social,
now Heineken, however, did an amazing
they
video, and
did
I'm
a
just
great job.
pulling up the links here. Their World Aparts one. Let me copy that into the notes here. Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. Oops, and it's called Worlds Apart,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it resonated for a couple of reasons. One was a strong social message. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's basically they took individuals who had very, very staunch opinions, where it'd be ultra conservative versus ultra liberal, um, yeah, homophobic versus transgender, whatever the cases may be. Um, and the interesting thing is they sent people in the room. They had never met each other. They didn't know what it was about, and they had them build something together, which turned out to be a bar. Then they went over to a cooler and they pulled two Heinekens, working together. They're achieving a common goal, and then they play the videos, the things of like, here are your social beliefs
What you
and
believe for,
philosophy,
which is exactly opposite the person you just built a bar with.
diametrically opposed, and they sit down and talk about it over a beer. And that's the brilliant thing about it. It wasn't just like, oh, look at this cute thing that we did and the people did this. It's like, oh, wait, if you use our product to discuss your differences, we're helping bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you're also helping people get drunk and things like that. But that's okay.
That's just a sidebar thing. But
it ties in. What do people do? They sit down over a beer and talk about stuff.
right.
So it was brilliant. It tied. When you're in a demonstration, you don't hand the people. I mean, my favorite for the Pepsi commercial was, gee, if it wasn't Kendall Jenner, maybe if you had perhaps someone of a different race or dressed a little differently, trying to hand a can of something to someone on the police, that would not end well.
No, that wouldn't end well. But the whole Henneken thing reminded me of the other video that wasn't selling anything, but it was trying to make a point, and that was they went over and had a room of 30 or 40 people who were strongly identified with a heritage, a background. I'm Italian, or I'm Native American, or I'm Norwegian, or whatever. And some of them were very not militant, but extreme in their beliefs that their racial heritage was superior to other racial heritages, and that they were purely this or purely that. And then they had them all take DNA tests. And then had them come into the room and get the results of their DNA test to realize that they weren't, if they were what they thought they were, there were very little of it or some of it, but there were a lot of something else in the room that was adamantly, and they all come to realize that shit, we are all immigrants and we all are blended and mixed and things and so on. So it was another pointed way of realizing that when you take away the clutter that media flocks on you about this stuff, pushing you or tugging you in different directions for perception, that at the end, it's not what you may think it to be. But we're off on the hospitality side.
And tolerance. I mean, go look at J.K. Rowling's books. She wrote thousands of pages with Harry Potter, which the whole theme of that book is tolerance and the whole purebred, pure blood versus.
And if anybody wants to know how to handle trolls on Twitter, just go look at J.K. Rowling. She is a masterful artist at slamming and shutting down anybody, including the
Yes.
Trumps of the world and everything else. She has just an amazingly eloquent way of making a very succinct point, and
Yeah.
140 characters are not a limiting factor for her.
No, no, no. It takes her thousands of pages to write series of books, but boy, but again, that's the art of understanding and the ability to use language, and
Yep, yep, very much
that's
so.
a very strong thing for people going into business and
Well,
life in their future is to be able to use language effectively to communicate your point of view. So
I'm going to combine two topics we have. One was the Fred conversation, and the other one is this article I'm going to
yes,
pop up about paid search attribution, because it goes back to one of our previous conversations that we have had last week and before. What was it? I've been staying on a soapbox as I get more and more understanding as to the invasiveness of these things. First, let's talk about Fred. Fred,
yep,
for everybody that doesn't know, Google goes through massive persistent changes in their algorithm. The algorithm is what it uses to determine what the results it shows for your queries with them. Now, as we've talked about, there's a lot of artificial intelligence combined in that now, so that there's a little bit more intuitive responses. Google eventually wants you to be to have the ultimate assistant, where they give you a single answer to your single question mentality to it, where they want to give you the most ultimate answer for that. So that's what the algorithm does. And recently in March, they updated enough of a single process to name it. Now we've had conversations. It's like it morphed into something. We've had penguins and pigeons and all these different names and stuff. Well, this
right.
one's Fred.
Well,
Uh,
okay, but there's a twist on Fred. A fellow from Google, Gary, I think it's Illies, joked that all updates in the future will be named Fred. So that's,
in that case, this is Fred 1, and there'll be
which
Fred 2
which
coming up.
partially is Google, and Google didn't announce Fred and doesn't talk about it, and there's actually kind of sentiment that they probably won't because it doesn't
No.
really help them, because every time they do and the more specific they are, then the SEO community comes out and figures out how to game it, which happens anyway. But I think they just it's continual. How do you keep cleaning up the algorithm to get the best, most
Right.
relevant
Oh,
results to the top of
this
the
one
page?
isn't a gaming one, figuring out how to
Yeah.
get around it, because it's literally
Right.
saying, don't do this.
Yeah.
You do this and you're going to impact our usage of your website in results. And what they're saying you don't do is get in the way of the content that your visitor is wanting that drives them to you. And what
Right.
it means by getting in the way is sliders and overlays and pop-ups and things that are trying to sell rather than convey or communicate. Where
Right.
if people are coming to your site because they're looking for your hotel, don't invade that path for them with sales pitches with in front of the content that they're coming for, because Google
Right.
says they will now penalize you. And in
Hmm.
fact, a lot of websites that had heavy laid stuff like this lost upwards of half of their traffic
Yep.
overnight when this came
Hmm.
into full force in March. And it was a dramatic change for some of them. And so this is a word of caution, because in our market, as we've been talking about recently, there are, in fact, a lot of new emerging and growing use of products that you're inviting to your website. Now, branded hotels, of course, don't have this issue, but brand does have this invasiveness on its own. So they have the issues that they have to do with brand. But this is more for those who are handling, operating, or running their own websites, independent hotels, restaurants, so forth and so on, that have their standalone website. And you're asking or having programs that are being put onto your website to augment your conversion value. There are lots of overlays like that. There's lots of sliders like that you can
Yep.
have come into your website. And now Google's saying, if you have those, we're going to make you less relevant in the organic results that people are looking for, or in the
Right.
discoverability of you.
And I think it's more of not just having like an image carousel or something like that rotate. I mean, that's still all fine and good, but it's really a situation where you have these very, very aggressive like sign up for the newsletter, right? Which is always the big one, where you come in and it's all of a sudden, boom, here's this thing, and then you have to click. And then I love the ones who always put, no, I'm an ignorant fool and I don't
Oh, yes.
want this
No, I don't want good
They
information.
kind of berate, yeah. So again, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, things like that, but it stands in the way of the content, and so Google's keeping track of that with the Oh, with the Googlebot, and it knows what's appearing on the page in what sequence because it can see the code and exactly what's supposed to be happening here. And it goes, wait a second, the content that ranked here because it was so relevant and good is here, and it is now obscured. Stop that. And
Right.
that's
Right.
bad. Let's go send it to a page where somebody gets the information, that they're looking for. So.
Hmm.
But interesting things going on with Google. There's a thing that took place on Facebook last week, which was just a little innocent exchange where Rafat from Skift actually posted that hey, they weren't in Google News anymore. And anybody, and he basically asked, did anybody know anyone at Google to help him out? And I looked at it and went, yeah, that's not a good strategy because you're not going to find someone from Google who's going to tell you exactly what you do to get back in Google News, no matter who you know. It's just too big a company, and who's responsible for that, and who's going to take the time to help one player. But I wound up taking a look at what they were doing, and there were some really severe challenges with what they had. Their RSS feeds that they used to feed that had some very, very basic things. Description fields and things like that were empty, which doesn't really help. Probably doesn't skew things a lot, but just isn't really quite there. They didn't isolate their Google News feed. To just be news, and Skift has a lot of postings about different promotional things that would be paid white papers, the white papers that are available for a fee, promoting conferences, and in many cases promoting, speakers at conferences and things like that. But all sorts of stuff that Google would by no means consider news. So that was all in one giant RSS feed. So that's obviously a problem. And they didn't have a functional sitemap. And this is a site that gets 1.1 million visitors. The link was broken, not really working, and their robots TXT file, just if we really want to get down in the weeds, disallowed tracking of their feed.
Hmm.
So, which
I found
is
that a lot
very
on some sites where people are stupid enough to have the no follow on it.
right. And well, this was just disallow. So not a follow. It was just like, don't even look at this, right? And that is crazy because I mean I remember when that became a popular thing to do. You'll get more link benefit if that's distracting pages. It's going to go, you'll get more juice over on the actual page itself. It's like, oh, come on, that's just ridiculous because they know that's a feed. It's pointing to these pages. It's providing structure of how these pages are related the same way a sitemap does. So so basically they were hosed because Googlebot couldn't figure out what the heck the site was about, didn't know how any of this stuff was related, and they didn't have good stuff. They had a mix of junk in their RSS feed. So, Google did the right thing. They just said, forget it. Now, what was interesting, though, was there was another site called Claire something or other that was wholesalely posting Skift articles in their entirety as their content. WordPress based site, just grabbing the content, posting it, and that was ranking higher than Skift. So, all sorts of, I mean, we're talking basic blocking and tackling of site hygiene to go, let's look through this. Are people ripping off your site? Are they using your content? Is your sitemap working? Are your RSS feeds set up properly? What's going on with your robots TXT? And that's really basic stuff. If you aren't doing that, you can't expect to be ranking well or having people find your content because you're making it impossible for Google to organize your content.
Right. Well, again, it goes to the fact that this isn't a how to scam the system with this. This is the fact that Google is saying these things are pervasive to the value function of what we're providing as a search engine. You're getting in the way of what you're saying your quantity of and quality of score is of your content, and we're not going to rank you or allow you to get away with that in comparison to somebody who doesn't do it. So we're going to start reducing your impact on results as long as you keep putting it in the way. How this connects to, you get into the weeds a little bit.
One more thing, sorry. One more thing on site hygiene. So press sites. when you start using a lot of plugins, you have to be very, very careful of that because number one, in some cases, they may start limiting um, some capabilities of your site. They may slow down your website. They may start loading, JavaScript and things like that in advance. Because again, when you do a plugin, you don't always have control over exactly where does this stuff go on the page. It just kind of, you say automatically enter it and thump, it goes. And some of these guys are like, post our stuff first before the content of the page. And that's bad. It slows down the site and it does the same sort of structural thing of hindering the content that's valued to be there. The other thing is they have a huge number of tracking cookies and all sorts of garbage.
Yeah, I'll bring that one back up again because I used that in the presentation I did this past week when I was traveling. But to the point of the technicalities of this is that this is where running your website and knowing enough of it to be dangerous and having somebody work on your site that knows a lot to be good. It comes into play because there are ways to control these load times, these prioritizations, and so forth that an experienced web developer has. So when you ask, "Oh heck, WordPress is that's easy. It's WYSIWYG. And when I need something, I'll plug it in." And these are all arguments to use WordPress as a platform for your website. It's also an argument of why, when you do this, that you need to then bring somebody in to make sure these things are good. Now, you can watch for yourself. You don't have to bring in a web developer to tell you all the gloom and doom that your website is doing. You can go to your, Google has a great tool for mapping out your speed according to mobile rendering as to how fast and quickly you have. And there's a webmaster tools with Google that all you do is make sure that your Google Analytics is connected to a webmaster tool program, and it will diagnose your website and tell you what you're putting out with those things.
I use GT Metrics. That's a very good one.
Can you put the link up in the chat window on the side for them so that they know where they can find that? But to continue the conversation about with Fred and this invasiveness with stuff and some of our other previous conversations when we had the other host with us was the article that I posted up earlier about paid search attribution models. Is your hotel doing it wrong and paying for it? It goes into some variations, but the one variation I want to highlight, and this is a continuation of our conversation, is a lot of these invasive things that you're allowing into your website from outside vendors to what they promote as augmenting your conversion value of your direct channel. Obviously, we went through this phase this past year of direct channel is better than any other channel. It's the most cost-effective channel. You saw all the brands, as we talked about, try to do this membership thing to get as an end around on the OTA saying, come join as a member. We can offer you something special for that, which kind of undercut the idea that they had to offer market parity with the OTAs. And we've argued what they're not doing with that membership connectivity now, but
engagement that's a problem. Yeah, they got the registrations, but they are not getting the continued engagement, they're
not getting the engagement. It's a one-time purchase for most people. So in that case of with these plugins that are coming to your sites, and we're not going to name industries or companies specifically, that's not the purpose of this conversation, but there are several companies that once you allow them to be put onto your website to supposedly help your conversion value on your site, the way that they do it in the technical sense, kind of getting in, as you said, the weeds of the technicalities, is, say, for instance, you have ad campaigns that drive traffic to your website. And, of course, you have people finding you on your search engines. And you have people that know you specifically and look for you specifically and went to your website specifically. These plugins have certain conditions as to when they pop up or when they show what it is that they're doing. And a lot of them are very, very general as to how that happens, whether you might be looking, your mouse got close to the browser to shut it off. Well, that triggers it. You sat on a web page for 60 seconds, even though you may have opened a sub page and then the mother page was left open. That's a condition for this plugin to activate. Well, what happens when it activates in the attribution world is that it suspends the original session. If they came in from a search engine, your ad, whatever, it suspends that session and now inserts itself as the value of why they're there. And so now, depending upon your pay relationship with this plugin, you're either paying commission if the person that's already there for whatever reason buys something, or you're paying a fee for the traffic that it now says it brought to your site, when in fact it was already there for a different reason. But it now intercedes in that attribution string and says, we're the cause and the reason for whatever comes out of this relationship for this person. And now you're paying for something that, in effect, really didn't come because of them.
They produced for them. Yes. Yeah, you produced the link to them. And then,
yeah. And this is pervasive enough that in one case that I know of with one of my clients, 97% of all traffic coming to their site was was being taken credit from this plugin.
Right.
And we're like, there is no way that much traffic came from this one. They didn't drive that traffic, because I'm looking at the start of the attribution strings, and it's paid, it's organic, it's direct, and then boom, there's this plugin, and it took over the sessions and said that there was a reason for the sessions.
You looked at those attribution streams, and the number of people who go into Google Analytics and really look at that and understand that, especially on a do-it-yourself sort of website, is relatively limited. So you need someone who knows their way around this stuff, or you get taken to the bank by someone who appears to be a great partner, and maybe they are. Right, and maybe they're helping you, but if you're compensating them, and 97's a new high for me. The highest I had seen was like 90%, which I thought was pretty egregious. But
well, that's pretty egregious too. Yes,
but you look at these and go, oh, I am grossly overpaying for this, and it's the same thing as the billboard effect. I mean, I go around with Chris Anderson, who's a great professor, but this attribution of OTAs to it. And yes, individuals shop around multiple websites and they land on OTAs, and then they go to the individual hotels' websites, and there's a whole mix of people bouncing all over the place. But in terms of this quote billboard effect, you have to take a little bit of it with a grain of salt, because again, it's being overly attributed that, oh, because you're on the OTA site, that's why you got this. No, it was a contributing factor. And I think it's, if you take it at the base point is, you know what, being on that OTA site is probably better than not being on that OTA site in terms of exposure to people who've never heard of you. It's probably a good thing. And then you really have a chance to do it. But if you're looking at I've got to be on this, and that's now justifying me paying 25% to an OTA instead of 15%. Hang on, that's maybe not. That's maybe a overvaluing that relationship, and that's the key. I think a lot of these hoteliers really need, and the brands really need to understand core attribution, because I haven't been able to do this with a client, but I would love, in many cases, to shut down things like the OTA relationships, shut down advertising in a very organized manner, and then really see what happens to the hotel. Of course, you're never going to do that, because that could be very detrimental to business and that sort of thing. But that would then wind up, if you really had an organized manner of shutting off these channels and seeing what the impact is. In some cases, you might realize, oh my gosh, that advertising is not doing anything, and that's in fact, it's
really just taking credit for things that's not there. But that goes to another aspect, and that's involving accounting into the conversation as well, because here's things that fall between the cracks. Marketing division decides that they want one of these plugins. They think that it's going to help with the conversion value of the direct site, and so they go to revenue management and say, hey, revenue management, we're going to have this plugin thing, and it's going to want to offer something, and we need something to offer. So revenue management gives them a rate and an offer, and they make the code for it, they put it in the market strategy. And then they go to accounting and say, hey, accounting, we have this new vendor. Here's their W-9, and they're going to be sending us bills on commissions that they are driving to our website. Everybody goes like this, washes their hands, and the thing launches. Now, the revenue manager sees business coming on that promo code. Okay. So he's fine. He keeps stuffing
in. Good. It's working.
Yeah. Marketing sees the report that they are generating X number of revenues, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, that's great. Accounting gets a bill that says this is how much you have to pay us for what we drove. And nobody goes back and says, hey, go ahead.
And it hasn't, quote, impacted anyone's marketing budget. It was free at no cost to the hotel.
Yeah, it's all commission based. So nobody goes back and says, hey, wait a minute. First off, the vendor isn't providing a reconciliation of what it's charging for. It's just sending a bill. So accounting doesn't even know to ask, hey, can you give me a list of what you're charging me for on commission so that I can go back to revenue management and say, hey, can you confirm that these all actualized, that they weren't just bookings, but that they were actualized revenue, not just a number. Nobody does that because nobody told accounting that they should ask that. Revenue management didn't include that. And revenue management isn't going back and asking that. Marketing's not going back and asking. As far as they know, they were successfully adding something to their site and going through. And then in some different other plugins, you should have the right that is driving first-time business to go back and say, I'm not paying for second-time business because your cookie is on my website. Doesn't mean everybody coming to my website that may engage with whatever it is that you have on my website means that they turn instantly into your guest again if they've been with me before. Your job was to get them to me the first time. I'll pay you for that. But don't make me pay you the second time they come back. Nobody's doing that either. So
you're saying a 365-day term on that might be a bit long for some of these?
the forever cookie? Yeah, no. And that's another part.
That's another thing is that needs to be understood.
Right.
Of what are the time, what's going on with these cookies? How long do they persist? And wait a second, because again, that's one of the things on the retargeting folks.
Yep.
Is a problem because yes, you were on the website of that hotel. That's fine. That's a fact. But then you look at the number of other websites that people go to in the course of their lives, and it's like, yeah, I was on Yahoo and I was on MSN and I was on Google and you're all over the place. And all of a sudden, when those ads are exposed, was it even visible in terms of the visible page? Who knows? But that pixel fires, and then all of a sudden, pow! There's also
the added pain that you have, and this is also nobody watching the fences. Is so you also on some of these plugins actually added into your booking funnel, into your booking engines, so that they're in the process of the acquisition. Now, the platforms that you're using, the Synexuses of the world and so forth, do not care what you add into it as long as it doesn't interfere with what their process is, and as long as you still pay them for the transactions they're handling, and whatever you plug in allows that to happen. So in their world, they're getting paid for what they're doing. So they're not watching the fence. Your accountant doesn't even know how this stuff works. Your marketing person sometimes mostly doesn't even know once they put it in what it's actually doing. In revenue management, they're just aware of the rate offering that goes on. Some of these plugins are actually in the stepped process that it's showing comparative rates for OTAs when your rate is below theirs to give value proposition. Well, anytime that popping comes in and does that, it's taking credit for what's happening at that moment forward. And if even it doesn't show up on the website, and if the person didn't even click on it on the website, but went into the booking funnel for their own discovery, and that popping comes in because it's hit the criteria of the rate they're looking at is less than the rates they're being compared to, and that's an added value of saying, we're going to make sure people know this, they now take credit for that transaction, and you're paying them for that event, even though they did nothing to generate that event.
Well, what you're doing is you are paying them for their pixel firing.
Yes, and so that is your.
And if it's on a commission basis, that can get really. And again, who knows? And not picking on any particular group, but it depends on what they could be doing something really, really good that certainly assists conversion and really drives things home, or they could be doing nothing. And you need to understand those scenarios and really kind of handle these different cases from, I'm always like a broken record, breaking down your travelers and your guests into personas, and then looking at those navigation paths and scenarios of when they come to your site, why are they there? What are they doing? And those sorts of defined paths, you can then, if you understand that, maybe you can have particular rules that say, yes, you fire under these particular circumstances. On these circumstances, you don't have to, sort of thing. So
I'm with you on that, since I'm typing up some stuff on Facebook because I had a couple people asking me whether to make sure I got posted up on a couple of other pages. But again, going back to this attribution, now the article that we're referring to, the Travel Tripper, which is in the link you see in the chat room, take a look at it. There's more than just this conversation about. It's really about assigning value of attribution, knowing where your sources of business are coming from. I use the example of attribution strings. For those who haven't looked at attribution strings in their Google Analytics, please do so, because that's what Google gave us in return for taking away our keyword understandings for non-paid. They said, here, we're going to give you attribution because we really want you to know the process that people used to acquire whatever it was you're selling, not by the words they use, but by the intent and the discovery of how they found them. So it's a very, very valuable tool because, as I discuss in my presentations with the HSMA Rocket Program and so forth, it's about defining what that attribution string was, because in paid, we know what the ads were that were used. In social, we know the engagement of the posts that we created. And in organic, we know what pages they went to. So with that being said, if you connect the dots and realize that the organic page they went to was kind of fuzzy and not as specific as it should be towards all the other stuff that contributed to it, redefine the content to a page that then can improve the conversion, because then you're not spending more money to make more money. You're spending the same money and making a boatload more money because it's actually converting better. You figure that for every 100 people that come to your website, 2, maybe 3 buy something. So you have 97 people that walked away. Why did they walk away, and what could we have done differently to have even 1 or 2 of those people left that didn't leave?
Right.
So that's the goal.
An important note is also to really understand that not everybody who comes to your website is ready to book or intending to book. They may just be looking for a telephone number because a friend is staying there and they're trying to, figure it out. But again, those are the sorts of things that somebody told me something very valuable. Actually, it was a CTO of a major OTA. Said, getting people into groups is the easiest thing in the world, right? You tag them, you say, this is it, they're part of it. The hardest thing is taking them out of those groups. And that's really probably the functionality that needs to happen, where somebody comes to your homepage and lands there. That's fine. But if they go to the kind of the contact page or the about or something where you go, oh, wait, that's a group member or something like that, then maybe that should be subtracted out from that other traffic. It should at least be understood as that navigation path is different and has different dynamics, because again, maybe that was part of a group block. That individual isn't really doing anything except trying to go out and get their booking or find out whatever, what room what room a meeting center or something like that. Who knows? So it could be anything.
Well, and that brings up to the article I just dropped up, and this is an article from eHotelier that I thought was interesting, because they're beginning to point out, and I'm glad these discussions are coming up prior to whatever the future of our industry is going to be for the remainder of this year, and that is that you can't compete on price alone. Now, it sounds like a Mr. Obvious statement, like, thank you, Mr. Obvious. Of course not. But in fact, anytime I deal with certain hotels and create a scenario for them, their first answer is price. What are they going to do? I give examples of, there's an example I use in validating the use of custom audiences for Facebook, where I had a hotel that lost 62% of its occupancy 2 weeks out. And it was a group block loss. And they had an attribution account for them, but you know what it was? It was an annual repeatable business, and it was a tragedy that caused them to cancel. So the hotel didn't want to enforce the attribution clause, but they were still sitting there with 60% of the inventory blanked 2 weeks out. And so in the revenue officers in the room, I go over and ask them and say, what are your choices? Now, I've had some come up with some creative variations, but 98% of the time, we drop our rate. And we drop our rate to pissing off all of our competitors because we're going to the basement. And we're hoping to gather any residual demand for that time period. And we know we're going to put money back on the table from people that when they discover that there's a lower rate than what they're paying, they're going to rebook it under that new rate. I said, well, there was another solution to this. And that is, we took a custom audience of people that were on the books, a custom audience of people that were in a 150-mile radius, which is a 2.5-hour drive market, because 2 weeks out, nobody's going to fly. And everybody that was roughly the same time last year. And we put all those as custom audiences in Facebook. We made a negative out of those who were on the books so that what we're about to do, they wouldn't see. Right. And we offered the group rate. Ended up, we filled the whole hole again. We sold out. So now that doesn't happen all the time, but it obviously happened enough that I could put it in a presentation. The idea of it is that most of the answers in the revenue world come from restriction of inventory or augmentation of rate. That's their that's their levers to drive a boat. And it's a lot like having a boat without a steering wheel and just the engines. You can steer it, but it's not always the best way to do it. So you're either driving occupancy or you're driving rate. Driving occupancy, driving rate. And, that's it. So with that, it kind of ties to another conversation. I'll put this link up. It was a conversation from the guy from Skyscanner, the CEO of Skyscanner, talking about how we can learn from the Chinese e-commerce. Now, at first, I thought it was going to be, when I first started reading the article, I was skeptical. And I thought they were just going to talk about how the Chinese have everything in one application, WeChat. And so there's a complete continuity of engagement from interest and shareability and opportunity and everything else, and location basing and all that. And instead, the article really wasn't about that singularity of platform. as it was a function in that platform called Tmall. And what Tmall was is it talked about comparisons of product, much like you do an Apple website that you looking at version 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the same MacBook and seeing the differences of speed and storage and everything else. Well, that's what Tmall does in comparison with hotels. It shows not just the price comparisons, but amenity comparisons, things that want to be highlighted about each individual hotel that each hotel wants to say about themselves. And he said this came from a discussion he had with the CEO of Icelandic Air or something like this, where Icelandic Air wanted to highlight on his Meta platform the fact they just spent $90 million or $900 million on new planes.
Right.
He says, how can we say that in front of our guests when they're looking for flights? Yeah. And there was no way of doing that. So now that Skyscanner is owned by Ctrip, Chinese organization, which is their principal travel platform in country, he's noticing these usabilities where it's like, why aren't other platforms doing things like this that says, here's our hotel comparisons. This hotel, yes, there's the rate and availability is given for the dates you're interested, but here's some neat part. These people think the pool's bigger and that they think that they have a better garden, and it gives you a chance to really see what each hotel says about themselves in comparison to the others. So,
that's an area that even the OTAs still are not very good at. I honestly think Google and Airbnb are working on it, and we'll see how well they do it. But two particular areas. One is all-inclusive resorts and packages for hotels. If you just put it in a straight meta search OTA sort of environment and you're looking at Cancun, all of a sudden those all-inclusive resorts start looking really expensive because it includes all of your meals, all of your recreation, all this stuff. It's a different type of product, and there's not really anything except maybe they have a little flag now that'll say it's all-inclusive, and that's okay, but it's still not where it needs to be. And there are a lot of guests who come, particularly for the Mexican resorts. They know Marriott, they know Hilton sort of thing. That's where they stay, where they could get a much better deal at the all-inclusive. Now Hyatt's gone into that with Playa Resorts, and was it Zilara and not Zika? I can't remember the name of the other one, but you really have issues of how do you merchandise that properly. And that's why all-inclusive resorts have almost always been sold through travel agencies and wholesalers, because you have someone who can say, hey, if you're looking for this, here's a great fit for you. Here's the property that you've never heard of. You're going to have a great time at Blue Bay. You're going to have a great time at Iberostar versus Riu versus, whatever, an AM resort, Secrets or whatever it may be. And most of the vast majority of particularly U.S. travelers never heard of any of these.
Well, also too, and we've had this discussion. I mean, after 90 shows and now 91, we've touched on lots of stuff, but OTAs, and this is, I already know it's an unfair statement because obviously you can say, no, they don't want to do this ultimately, but they have to do this functionally. And that is, they want to homogenize what we're offering, and we want to commoditize what we're offering because it's the best way to keep consistent with their presentation. They want functionality over aesthetic discussion. They want to be able to say pool, yes or no. Room types, yes or no. TVs, yes or no. I mean, literal, but what I'm saying.
Well, they want to make it easy. They want to make it easy for the customer to make.
Well, that also comes from the search engine stuff too. Yeah, that comes from the search engine stuff too. Is that the search engines don't want to talk about flowery things, and not that I'm a big fan of talking about overstuffed pillows or oversized rooms, because I think what the hell is oversized? Did I expect a size and this is over that, or what? But anyway, I digress. The idea is that search engines want to commoditize what we're doing as well, so that they can speak to the similarities and the commonalities of our product. So we turn into this cookie cutter. And that's part of when I talk about a hotel needing to create its own story, is there's aspects about each hotel that are singularly unique to it. And I mean, even the Econo Lodge in the middle of between A and B.
Absolutely.
Is every place has something.
Free breakfast means a lot of different things.
It
I
means
mean,
a whole lot of different
it
things.
might be, it might be a little refrigerated area with a couple things of yogurt and some, God knows, a bowl of dry cereal, or there could be someone cooking eggs for you. I
Cooked
don't
yogurt
know.
omelets, right?
Yeah.
And to that end, the hotels they do checkbox marketing is what I call it. Where
Mhm.
do we have a website? Check. Do we talk about all of our room? They check. Do we? But they're not addressing what it is that people are looking for or what makes them unique to why they should be found. And those discussions get lost, And to that end, a lot of times revenue management looks at it that they have this functionality of rate and revenue. That's their
Mhm.
thing. They're looking at math that says when demand should or shouldn't be in market, where that demand is coming from, and how to augment their rate and the occupancies according to those bits of knowledge. Now, yes, there's other tools out there. That's a simplified version of revenue management strategy. But there are other tools out there of what are your competitors doing? What rates are they lending
Mhm.
to? Platforms as to what they're leading in with rates and so forth. But what they're missing is the nuance. It's like going to the Grand Canyon. You can look at it, and honest to goodness, if you walked up to the vantage points, it looks like the freaking postcard. You could
Mhm.
have saved yourself the trip because the place looks like the postcard. That's why the picture is there. But that's not the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is going into it or going to other places about it or experiencing being there, not just
Right.
seeing it. And that's the problem that with marketing and with revenue management is that right now they're only portraying what it is that's being asked of them. What is your room types? What is your
Mhm.
amenities? Where's your location? Standard stuff. And they're not augmenting that view with what makes them what they are. So there's
Well,
my soapbox.
and a lot of that is because the technology came first before the marketing. It was technology led as opposed to marketing led. And get out your bingo cards. When I was at Sabre, we did a tremendously revolutionary thing. And this is, mid 90s, mid to late 90s. We had just launched Travelocity, and actually it was in conjunction with launching Travelocity that we had a very, very limited space to put information. But people don't realize in the core of Sabre, all of the hotel information is stored in the BAS, the BAS, which is the basic air segment. And that just underlines exactly what the issue is. So you're cramming hotel content into something that was designed for an airline booking. And again, this is very old 1970s technology. It's very fast, but it's highly inflexible. But we had 13 bits of space, and we sat down, and it took us about 4 or 5 months. Linda Kent, who's now with Travel Leaders and formerly with Wyndham and Starwood, was my product manager. She's fantastic. We had to figure out what 13 attributes we could switches to basically what these hotels were for a massive portfolio of 210 at that time hotel brands. And we came up with, a basic, list of them, of swimming pools and things like that, but it was a switch that said pool. Didn't say if it was indoor or outdoors, didn't say if it was seasonal, didn't say, what hours when it closed or anything like that, didn't say how large it was. It was just, they got a pool. And
Mm-hmm.
that was all that the platform would permit. And so I think that's now what through hotel website development, those are the stories. If you've got a really fantastic pool and it's a giant lazy river and things, well, that's great. You can then go, really promote yourself and make that to elevate in terms of search listings. I mean, if you go and Google is getting better at this. The advertising hasn't necessarily caught up with it of matching that up, but the search is doing pretty well. If you're looking for a place in New York City with a great rooftop bar and pool, um, you can start finding that sort of thing now. Now, it's going to lead you to articles in New York Magazine. It's going to lead you to articles in such and such, but you might start getting lists. And that's what, those sorts of differentiating sort of things of what somebody's looking for. Um, that's great. A bartender or someone who makes a great Manhattan or whatever. Very interesting things that if you do that really well can drive people to your hotel. But does your website even say that? Does it capture it, or does it wind up on again, the New York Magazine, page or something like that, where, oh, there are 6 other hotels that are listed, and who knows what platform they're using to go refer those, if they're monetizing that content, to go say, oh, and those are bookable, and then they go get a VIG through an OTA. So all of a sudden, your great mixed drink could directly generate a booking into you because you have that drink through an online travel agency. So.
Mm-hmm. You're true. Hey, one interesting, fun little sidebar article that I just wanted to throw in there that had some merit to it. There's contestable points that it made, but I thought it was interesting anyway. I'll put it up now. It's from eHotelier. It says elder adults staying in extended stay hotels. And
Oh, really?
I thought of you, Robert. I did. I thought of you. I thought,
There.
oh man, this is a Robert article because older, but no, actually, and this is kind of funny to think of this, but their contention of this article was that older travelers tend to be more set in their ways as to how they travel. They get up at certain times, they have certain habits and so forth, and that extended stay hotels kind of play into that because it allows them to have access to laundry rooms. Okay, so when they're staying for any duration, they don't have to go out someplace else to do laundry. It's kind of like being at home. Breakfast is usually available. Breakfast is usually available at times that they ate breakfast. They can tend to settle into a room because they're there for a length of stay, and because of that, then they feel more comfortable in their routines compared to living out of a suitcase, which both of us know all too well. How that changes your daily routines and things. I agree with this in context. Unfortunately, everything about what's unique is also exactly what Airbnb caters to, and the RV world is selling at record pace for. So I don't know if it's really saying that extended stays should be catering to the older group, but for those who run extended stay hotels, maybe this is an avenue to augment just to see in a marketing strategy to see if there's value to it.
Certainly a segment, certainly a persona, and something to be looked at, but not just for extended stay properties. It depends. It's what are these individuals trying to accomplish?
In this conversation, Robert, that's not
right. That's right. So, well done, Lauren. But on this particular issue, in many cases, these are VFR guests visiting friends and relatives, and they're going to be there for a week. And instead of staying with the family or something like that, they're staying nearby. And yes, an extended stay place is fine. Now, the question is, for that visiting friends and relatives, do they need the kitchen? Really need to cook? And so if they are doing that, well, yeah, that's fine, and that's all fine and good. But in many cases, they don't. And so in that case, that same traveler would be perfect for a regular hotel that's nearby. And certainly a lot of Courtyards and Hyatt places and things like that that are all set up in suburban areas near, large residential areas. They do great with that sort of business. Another group that stay in extended stay hotels are families with young children, because generally the room might be a little bit larger. You might have a little bit more bedding flexibility because there might be a sofa to put kids, things like that. There's a kitchen, so you can reduce the cost of your meals and things like that. All sorts of different things. So again, it's not a one size fits all.
Since we brought in I did the Airbnb word and extended stay, I have to share a little bit of my recent Hawaii trip, just because I get to brag about being in Hawaii. Last week I was traveling with HSMEI in a rocket program. I had the privilege of speaking in Orange County, which is south of Los Angeles, San Diego, and then Honolulu. And then I got to spend a few extra days after that in Honolulu, having never been there before with my wife, and experienced.
You've never been there before.
Never been to Hawaii before. Out of all the travels I've ever been to Hawaii before. So this was it was a fun playing pure tourist, which I love to do. I'm very proud of being able to be a tourist. Some people try to get embarrassed, like they don't want to act like tourists. I'm like, hell, I'm walking around with my cocoa beans and beads and hat, and I'm pure tourist, man.
You got laid?
Oh yes. I actually went to the Lay Festival, which you commented on as well. Yes, went to the May Fest, which was a lay contest, which amazing lays. I got pictures all over the place of those things. But anyway, and in there was 2 strong ad campaigns on the local TV. You always get kicked out of watching local TV because obviously there's so much that goes on in the local market that never makes news that we share. no matter how much social interacts with things, if you don't have people that are in market that you communicate with, you don't get that shareable content. And there's a huge ad campaigns on two sides. You had Airbnb had several TV ads talking about how Airbnb was helping basically older single retired people make an income with their homes that they have in Hawaii. They were really like they were the good neighbor. They were the good neighbor. There was this older woman that her husband had passed. She was lonely, and she opened her house up to be Airbnb, and she now has visitors all the time. She gets to cook for them all the time, and her world's very happy. Plus, she makes a lot of money to pay for the absolutely ludicrous amount of money it takes to live in Hawaii. So there's those ads. And then there's the other ads, which says Airbnb is trying to take inventory of houses away from the locals by offering it only to those tourist people, blah, blah, blah. And they're asking for special tax dispensation with the state so that they don't have to pay. So there's these two amazingly diametrically opposite perspectives of Airbnb's value proposition market, because Airbnb in Hawaii is a big freaking deal. Because literally for those who have houses that live there, it's a way to pay for the ludicrous amount of money it takes to live. Everything is either half or twice as much as we normally pay here. Getting a drink.
It also takes affordable housing out of the reach of people too, because
and affordable housing for people who've never been there realize affordable housing is $1 million homes. I mean, we're looking at Zillow, which I don't know what most people do, is like, oh, I wonder how much that house is worth, just for fun. And these little wood frame houses on cinder blocks, and this is no exaggeration, with what looks like a junkyard, backyard, or side, because nothing gets thrown away apparently, it's going for $1 million. Why? Because it's in Hawaii and it's on some sort of slope that looks over something. Tourists, and I'm not trying to bash Honolulu, but there was a high contrast between those who have living in big, super high buildings and the have-nots for the homeless living in all the little cracks and corners. Very, very, very polaric view of it was interesting because I stayed on Waikiki, beautiful place, and all of Hawaii is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, and you should go and visit and so forth. And everybody has these issues. Every city has these issues. It's not as if it doesn't. I think it was in high contrast for me because you're in such a remarkably amazing place that they have the same issues. They still have the homeless issues. They still have bad roads, just like everybody else. As a matter of fact, I found out that Honolulu's traffic is second only to LA. Right. And I was like, and getting caught in it twice, I can see why. It's like, there's only one road to go. And if that road's blocked, that's it. There's no side roads on some of this stuff,
there is. You go around the other side of the island.
Yeah, there's none of that on
Cut
that.
over the middle.
This is the road. But to that end, I mean, Airbnb in some markets have a more definitive voice and definitive impact. Now, is it taking away from the Waikiki hotel row market? No. You're there for that reason. Is there Airbnb options that are close by to that? Yes. But a lot of times in the circumstances of it is that Airbnb is getting stuck in the mud. They're now into that taxation discussion with more and more markets. How are they contributing to the local market? How are they paying for the market? How is the market controlling their inventory in a way that is revenue generating for the city? These conversations are getting more and more all over the place. And Honolulu,
everywhere, Airbnb will pay and does pay occupancy taxes. Not if they don't have to, but if the city gets their act together, they will pay the occupancy taxes. The big question, though, is really the impact on affordable housing as you do that, and you get great places. I mean, go look at pricing in Palo Alto, sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, it's not anything anybody. I grew up in Bellevue, Washington. My parents in 1956 bought a 1,300 square foot house for $19,000, right? 4 blocks back from the lake. And, that's fine. Look on Zillow right now. You know what that house is worth? Unfortunately, we sold it.
Not at this price.
Over a decade. Not this price. $1.7 million.
Well, I mean, there's always those stories.
It wasn't torn down and rebuilt. It's fundamentally the same house, right?
Well, I mean,
maybe updated a little bit, but that's it.
San Jose and Santa Clara
changes.
When I first started visiting there for client reasons, I was expecting this mecca of high tech buildings and new stuff, and it isn't. There's a lot of buildings that are just as old and tired as they were 25, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's because it's so freaking expensive to tear down and replace. They really just use what's there, but it's massively expensive to have what's there because you're in that mecca. You're in that San Jose market. You're in that Santa Clara market. And there's this building that is looking like it came out of the 60s and it's still being used. Why? Because it's just would be crazy ludicrous to the cost of tearing it down and replacing it. And
Right.
and I think
And
that
the
end
owner
with
could sell it and then go move to someplace with a low cost of living, or they just have it as an investment. And
right.
again, now, so you sit there and you go, okay, well, here's Airbnb. Now they go, and in that case, they're probably just trying to, pay for the property taxes. But,
Hmm.
a strategy could be, hey, if I can rent this place out enough nights to go pay for the property taxes, I'm good. Right. And then I'm
Right.
here and this is,
Oh,
fine. And they won't move. And that won't be someplace where it's
so in
really going to
Hawaii,
be,
you only pay the taxes of when you bought it for however long you own it.
right.
So, but places that have been owned 40, 50 years or 30 years, you're on paying taxes for whatever the house was. Heaven
Yeah.
forbid you sell it to the next
Yeah.
person, because the next person has to pay taxes.
Step up,
Yeah.
adjustment.
And so,
Yep.
so a lot of these homes are handed down. Well, which is why Airbnb has such a foothold, because
Mhm.
for them, if the person who can't afford the home then starts augmenting their income with Airbnb, and they don't have to worry about the taxes associated with it or Airbnb, then now there's inventory that now a local who might need to live somewhere, that house isn't even being put on the market for sale or for rent or
Absolutely.
anything, because the person's able to sustain their cost living with the Airbnb. So it is a very,
And
very real
and if
issue.
they can rent that out 270 days a year, problems. And it basically undermines the quality of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And New York's going through this. You got these really, cool neighborhoody areas. They got a ton of Airbnbs in there, and all of a sudden it's all tourists, and you don't have residents living there who are going to the neighborhood dry cleaner and this sort of thing to do that
Right,
sort of thing.
right.
You got a lot of restaurants. You got a lot of things that's consumable for tourists, but it's not the fabric of what keeps that community alive.
Yep.
And the communities start dying out. So
Yep.
it's
Now, as a shout out
it's
to
a
the
problem.
Honolulu market, it was refreshingly nice, um, where everybody, when they were coming together for the session on Friday, in Waikiki, the hotels are literally side by side by side by side. I mean, there's nothing really dividing them. It's dense. They're all in the same market. They have the same beach. There's only 7 of them. The Seven Sisters are on the beach itself. Then you have off beach, and then you have off beach,
And some of
and
those don't really have beach in
yeah,
front of
and
them.
then
Yeah. They're
the
on the
hotels.
water, not on the beach.
Yeah, and then they have hotels that are symbiotic with each other because of the similar ownerships and so forth.
Mhm.
As we know, Outrigger's down there. Dan Waxman was down there. I got to see him in person again, which was always fun. And went to his restaurant Duke's quite a few times,
Oh,
along with
Dukes is great.
Hulu. Yeah, all that was fun. But and it was fun when they all get together in the room. It was like family week. I mean, everybody's hugging each other and good to see each other, because you would think, and from face value, that they're fiercely competitive with each other, and they are. You're when you finally make the decision you're going to go to Honolulu and go and stay in Hawaii Kiki, you are competing with your person right next door, because you're being compared as to what you offer versus them, and the differences and the similarities really get very fuzzy, because I can stay next door to the Outrigger, which I did at the Moana Surf Rider, and literally walk over and go into Duke's or go into the Hulu. I mean, their amenities are available, and the beach is available. Their bars available. Mai Tai bar, kick-ass Mai Tais, awesome Mai Tais,
Yeah.
by the way. But there's the only real distinction is, do I get to charge it to my room or not charge it to my room? Some of those variations, some incentive values within the hotel, which I was asking why they didn't offer more of, which they don't have to, because they have the market there. They want to capture more internal market. But it was neat to see everybody collaborative, like, hey, we're here, we're on this island, we're in the same market, we're competing for the same interest, but it doesn't mean we have to not like each other and work together. I mean, they were very willing to talk about interest and strategies and so forth, that, if you would think, are literally telling the competitor what they're doing that they could duplicate. But in all
Right.
honesty, most of them are doing very similar things anyway. It's the hair differences that make the difference, the brand loyalties that make the difference, the membership loyalties, which none of them are exercising good on. It is sad. I stayed at the Moana Surf Rider. It's a Western product. Still, Marriott's not tied connectively to them correctly yet. So Starwood is the only reward point system to it. They offer discounts and point reward systems. One thing I think they do smart is, on their concierge level, which they have 3 different concierge stations, is if you buy anything through those concierge levels, tickets to shows and so forth, you can charge your room for it, hence also get Starwood reward points. So you can really augment your point structure by doing it. Unfortunately, we didn't realize this small fact until after we checked out and we had bought our tickets elsewhere, that this would have been a benefit for us. But that needs to be a part of what we talked about earlier. This was the story. What makes your hotel different? I mean, obviously the Moana Surfrider, amazingly historic hotel, beautiful first hotel on the beach, blah, blah, lots of stuff to it. But that doesn't take away from the Surfrider story. And it doesn't take away from the Surfrider's product and its connectivity to the retail platform down below. And all those other little things that make it different between staying there or staying at the Moana.
My parents used to stay there all the time when they lived in Hawaii. That was their hangout, kind of after they moved from Japan. After World War II, they moved to Japan. They lived there, but early 50s when my sister was born, that was their hangout.
It's funny seeing a lot of buildings that came right out of the 60s and so forth that are still being used in downtown Honolulu. But there's a neat thing that, just to share a story about something, was that there was this complex that was being built by the Ward Shopping Center. Matter of fact, the Ward Shopping Center is being torn down for something else. And there's this area that was built 10 years, that was sold 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's facing out over...
Ward warehouse was there, 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Well, right next to it, there's now this whole new retail and restaurant areas for Ward and everything else that they built, shopping and theater and everything else. And it looks out, there's this area that they're building that they're almost done. They'll be done by the end of this year. That's the point. And it's looking over Magic Isle, which is the Ana Moana park, but it's called Magic Isle. And they sold it 10 years ago. They put it on the market for 10 years ago for these units, 1-bedroom and studio units for, it was $1.2 million 10 years ago. For a studio or 1-bedroom. They sold out all the inventory that they were selling within the same day that they made the offer. 10 years ago.
Underpriced. Yeah.
Okay. It is now just getting completed. Nobody's lived there. For 10 years, you bought a $1.2 million place you don't have for 10 years. Right. The estimated market value of any of those units once they go live, once you can actually move into them, is almost $5 million. Yep. That's a hell of a return in 10 years. If you can sit on $1.2 million of hopefulness for 10 years, that's a pretty good cash out if you're not going to live in it. But that's the kind of market that world is. It's hard for people that haven't lived it or do it, and myself included, to rationalize that kind of cost factor. I mean, the ironic part was you look around at gas prices per gallon were kind of what they have here in Texas. But you go to get a drink, it's $14 to $18. Breakfast, $14, $18.
Gas prices were that low. That's surprising. Gas is normally really pricey. That's interesting.
Yeah, and then there's little stores called ABCs, which are everywhere. They have everything from liquor to tourist stuff to groceries to whatever you need, medical medicines like little Walgreens. But anyway, that's just all Honolulu stuff. It was a lot of fun to be there. As you can tell, I was excited about being.
Okay, so let's play a little game of how many days were you there that were non-work related? Oh, just 4. Okay, just so not 4. A lot. But you were just on Oahu. Okay, so didn't get to go to the other islands, which are
just Oahu and really just amazing. Waikiki and Southern.
And a lot of people hate Oahu and Honolulu because it's so built up and so different. I personally like it a lot. So,
see, 75%. Wait, these are all stats that are in my head. 75% of all residents of Hawaii live in Honolulu. There are 1.1 million residents compared to 1.75 of the entire island base. And you're right. There's a lot of people that do not like the Honolulu at all. And they don't see that as being indicative of Hawaii at all. It was kind of fun to be there and watch the snow report in the Big Island. They were getting snow on the mountains the Big Island because we had a little bit of rain and it was cool. It was in
Big Island. Big Island's fantastic. Maui's great. I'm partial to the Big Island just because it has such amazing variety. But okay, so what did you do in those 4 days?
I rode
went to the Lei Festival.
Hop-off buses. We went on every route that the hop-on, hop-off. It was 5 routes. We rode all 5 routes to see as much as what
the public bus?
No. This was the paid-for tourist bus.
Oh, because don't have to. You hop on the public bus. It's like 50 cents. You just go.
Oh yeah. No, the public bus was great, but the idea of it was that we always do these hop-on, hop-offs when we travel to a place we've never been. Okay. They kind of get an orientation of where everything is,
right.
How it all lays out, and to see the stuff that they want to feature. Because we plan on going back to Hawaii now. I mean, obviously, we want to more than just what we saw. But at least now we have a sense of where everything kind of is. We wanted to go to the Pearl Harbor Memorial, which was a lot of fun. Well, fun and solemn, but in a good way. and going through the city, going through these routes, and looking at everything, and going to Diamond Head, and going down to where they made the movie From Here to Eternity, and where they made Blue Hawaii. And you can see, you look at it, it's like, my God, that's right out of the movie. That is, wow, that they didn't have to make anything up with that view. That is the view, and
right.
it is beautiful. It is stunningly beautiful, and that's why I think the contrast of seeing those that have and have not was so profound for me, because in that place, you would think that everybody had a level, and also solar panels. Solar panels are everywhere, which I thought was awesome,
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it's all Honolulu stuff.
Well, okay. So did you rent a car and get out to the other part of it, or just mostly? Yeah. Okay.
No.
So see, my favorite areas are on the other side of Diamond Head. You have and I just spaced out on it. Used to be the old Hilton. Hilton used to be, what do they call that area? And it's now, I think, Mandarin Oriental, but it's a great, I'll think of it when the show ends. But
no, I went past that.
Spectacular area. But then you go past that, you go by Hawaii Kai, which is this very large bay and affluent area to live. But then you go past Coco Head and you go to Hanama Bay. And Hanama Bay is the best. Oh, you made it to Hanama Bay. That's great. Yeah. Unbelievably kind of long hill down there, but like swimming in an aquarium. It
looked beautiful.
Fantastic.
Absolutely beautiful. We went there,
Yep.
Yeah. No, we like I said, that's what the tour buses ran us around to see. I was actually very impressed with the high Japanese market. They dominate the market. Everything is written in Japanese in addition to English. Yep. And they have a better tour bus system and shuttle system than anybody else. We call them whale tails because they were beautiful buses, had a whale tail top to them on the back. They made it look like a whale tail. And they were all over the place. And every place you went to, JALPAC was everywhere.
Yep, absolutely.
And JALPAC rates, JALPAC offers, I mean, everything. They really, really, really are that market when it comes to what they're catering to.
And that all started in the very, very late 80s, early 90s when Japan was having its bubble economy. And an interesting story, the tour operators, because you had a lot of individuals in Japan because the economy was on fire, and all of a sudden you had this new middle class, and very similar parallel to kind of what's going on in the Chinese market. People who had never traveled widely before, just not really knowing what to do. The tour operators had to run training sessions for how to function and operate in kind of the West, how to take a trip to Hawaii because it was so disordered. How to use a flushing toilet was like, what is this thing? Mm-hmm. And tipping, all these different, what you do, what you don't do, sort of things. And they literally did, because people would come back if they didn't have that rudimentary training and have a horrible time and tell their friends, it's the worst place on earth. It's just so confusing. Don't go there. It's awful. Right. And so, they worked on that. But you didn't make it up the North Shore, huh?
No, there was a couple of things. One was the North Shore. It was past season, so the biggest waves were less than 10 foot. So a lot of the more premier surfers weren't really there. That was it. Well, the way it was described to us was, that most of the better than average surfers out of the Waikiki area, now this was their time to go to North Shore and start getting better in the larger waves. But it wasn't where they were the 30-footers or anything like that coming through.
Yeah, that's okay. Those were all the winter storms.
So because I digressed into 20 minutes of Honolulu speak, sorry about that, but it was like so much relevant. But one of the things that another article that I wanted to throw into the discussion was on the where is it going? Flow through. Again, I keep bringing more accounting conversations into our topics as weeks go by, as these things start coming up. And one of this article here, let me bring it onto the chat. It was an interesting article from eHotelier. It was talking about, we don't keep good track as an industry, our flow through. You made the point earlier about commission based and so forth, and we've had the discussion on channel values and costs and so forth. But flow through and understanding where all this lands and hits. A lot of times it's passing the buck. Revenue management says, hey, my job is to get top line. Marketing is, hey, my job is to acquire. So again, top line. Accounting is to be responsible for measurability, which is nothing more than accounting for all the processes and values and revenues and costs associated. So whose responsibility is to watch the value proposition of the flow through? Now, right now, historically, on average, it's the GM. But the GM has been unfairly dragged into every dialect of need for their hotel, whether it's
Right.
front desk concerns, whether it's morale and housekeeping, whether it's product acquisition for FF&E, whether it's revenue management decisions and marketing channel discussions. They are the catch-all, justifiably, because they're ultimately the responsibility or final buck for the property, but they're overwhelmed. And the problem that's coming out of this is, and you've experienced and I've experienced it from a client relationship perspective, and when I used to work with hotels, is the GM gets into this paralysis of position. Because of whom they are, they stop asking simplistic questions because they feel it deters from the austerity or their authority at the level that they're at. Nobody wants to ask the dumb question, in other words, from a GM. And so GMs stop asking those questions and they start acting like they know more than what they do and start making decisions on stuff they don't know about. And flow through, I feel, is one of those things. They don't understand the concept of acquisition and source of business, its cost and value proposition as it goes into the top funnel, as it goes through all the different places that require cost spending, within the P&L, to know how it flowed through to ultimately whom they answer to, which is post EBITDA revenue. Okay.
Right.
When it gets past the EBITDA line, and there's earnings before income tax, depreciation, amortization, when it gets below that line and gets into the pocket of the owner, or what it may or may not get into as the pocket of the owner, is really ultimately where they get their paycheck from. And if they don't understand flow
as
through,
do the brands.
Yes. And
everybody
if they don't understand how this all works, then they are doomed to fail. That they feel like they're throwing in tons of money at the top line. They're great on revenue, they're great on marketing, so forth, but it's like a sieve at the bottom. There's nothing making it into the pocket of the person that actually is there for that reason. They own the place. So
and that should be the number one. Again, with my clients, it really winds up coming down to what are the business objectives of the property. And you've got to get that nailed down. Then you can start developing your marketing strategies. Then you can start working on, maybe if you need some technology to go make sure that these can get captured and you can measure things and go through. And then you can start doing some tactical things to really start testing and see what works and do more of what works. But that is the most critical component. And you can shoot it at everybody. Okay, so somebody has a deal. Let's just pick on booking.com. Booking goes through booking.com. Well, okay, let's say somebody was advertising and had some sort of a advertising promotion. They're going around and they wind up on TripAdvisor, sort of thing. Oops, well, through whatever happened, where they landed, they wound up there, and the person wound up booking through booking.com. So all of a sudden you have spend on advertising that didn't it maybe materialized into a booking, which is great, but booking.com now has taken 15% out. So you started at $100, you're now down to 85. Oh, you're a Hilton Garden Inn. They take about 14.9% of your revenue as well. Oh, now you're down to about 70. Oh, you got a couple points for credit card fee. You're now down to 67. And all of a sudden you start you've got to clean the room. You've got to have the electricity, and you start winnowing all that stuff down. And and that is the key for the general manager, is to understand that, because that is the ultimate responsibility to say, how are we running this place to generally manage the hotel, is to support that, to support that effort. And it's not just, again, hey, we have the highest ADR in town. Or we're the highest occupancy hotel in town. Or we have it's like, okay, but what's really happening from a business? Because again, when you dry up all that profit at the bottom, boy, you're really having a problem, maintaining your rooms. You're having problems, paying your staff. There certainly probably isn't, things are getting trimmed out for reserves for repair and maintenance. All that just starts, falling apart. And you have to have that. That is absolutely fundamental for it. And you're right. You get a lot of people who are just in there who, they're sitting behind the desk, they're making decisions, and they're really probably doing things that should have other staff members or members of their team empowering them to make those decisions so they can really spend time figuring out what are the key strategies, what do we do, how do we stop the bleeding here, how do we do better, new innovative ways to increase the profitability of the property.
Right.
Which
one of the other articles that we're going to drop in real quick because we're getting up to the hour and a half mark here on some things is one is that you threw in there, which I thought was a great point because I'm familiar with this in a more direct way, and that is, do loyalty bookings have come to wreck from Duetto?
Yeah.
And I thought you go ahead and kick it off because I have my perspective on this, having worked with people that have worked with this. Of course, the Red Line is the big example of deciding that you're going to tie yourself to loyalty bookings for a larger entity with the garnishment of being able to utilize that newfound knowledge. But go ahead with your take on it.
Yeah, well, and the Duetto article I thought was good because, again, I had a big conversation about this with somebody yesterday. There is very little that hotel rewards programs have to do with loyalty. It is gamification. These are vast majority of individuals, not that there aren't a couple people who, love a particular hotel chain and want to stay at it just because of what it is, but vast majority of people are converting their company's business travel spend to personal leisure travel benefit. That is the game. So, my hypothesis would be, if a company that has always said that they only book at Hilton's suddenly decides, hey, we're getting a better deal from Marriott, let's do that. All of those Hilton credit cards, everything like that, the value of the points in Hilton get consumed and all accumulation shifts to Marriott. Now, when you have that, yes, that's a thing for how do you keep people in the engine and the machine and going, but that's not loyalty. I still say loyalty is Apple Computer and my 19-year-old daughter, who, when she went to college, wanted a computer, and I kind of offered her the same deal that we did with her older sister, 7 years before, was, we can get you a Lenovo whatever, and this is fine, not real sexy, but hey, does everything you need it to do. It's great. It's going to be a workhorse. You have that for 4 years. And then when you graduate, then we'll get you a new computer when you're kind of at the end. And we did. We got our older daughter a new MacBook Pro, which was great when she got her master's degree, and everything's all fine and good. Well, my younger daughter wanted the MacBook Pro. What did she do? She used her own money and probably paid triple what I would pay for, a comparable computer, maybe double. Maybe I'm being a little cruel on that estimate, but out of her own pocket bought that because she wanted an Apple. She was willing to pay a price premium because she loved that product. How often does that happen in the hotel industry? Sometimes in the luxury space, yes, I want to stay there because I love it and I'm going to save and I'm going to go do it. But most of the time, not very often. So, and I'm the biggest critic, and I've said it 100 times here, these asinine major hotel companies, you freaking idiots, offering discount to your best yielding customers makes no sense. And if you don't believe me, ask your hotel owners, because it goes back to the last point of what happens when you saw off, these percentages off the top. It goes straight off of the bottom line. And that's a problem. Yes, the hotel company who's getting, whatever, few points on revenue, 7% of room revenue, 3% of, total, whatever it may be. Yes, their revenue might go down a little bit, but the vast majority hits the owner. And it's a ridiculous strategy, which really isn't sustainable. It makes no sense.
Back to your point again, that membership is being portrayed in our industry is really gamification. There is no loyalty component to it. It's a carrot on a stick reward program. Like an example I gave when I was in Honolulu, if I had stayed as a guest and bought my tickets with the touring locally as the incentive of getting points on my Starwood, I feel like I missed out because I didn't do that. What are the points going to count for? In all honesty, I don't collect enough points most of the time by the way I travel with any one entity to really make a difference of whether I was going to get my free bottle of water versus paying $4 for it.
Right, and most of the people who do that are either and they're a small business person who really controls their travel completely, right? And
Right.
that's fine. And you get into the program, they're like, right, I'm all in on this because I'm going to maximize the benefit.
Well, I mean, the
Or
reason,
it's the road warrior who he's doing it through his company. And that's
right. And for
again, that
me,
isn't necessarily an evil sort of thing to do, but it's a game. It's
right.
not
Well, look what American did. It followed suit with all the other airlines that instead of basing it on the miles that you flew, it's now on the dollars that you spend. They were the
oh,
last
absolutely.
holdout, so to speak. And,
Right.
now American is, so I have an American card because being here in Dallas, if you fly in and out of Dallas, American Airlines is your airline because anything else is usually more expensive and less opportunistic on time flights because there's,
And they've got 80% of the lift because it's their hub. And
right.
they're generally flying where you want to go, when you want to go, and that's a very, very powerful,
And
powerful
more
sort of
direct
thing.
than other places where a lot of places like Delta and so forth have to go through their hubs. So you're often, even though you're leaving
And
Dallas, you're having to go through Atlanta or something.
and an interesting point about the Advantage program, which really started all of this, that was not a strategic program for American. That started off as a kind of an add-on to they started doing very highly targeted localized advertising through Las Colinas cable channels. When they built Las Colinas, they put in their own cable system, and a couple of the American executives did that, and they were doing special sort of rates and things like that. That's where all these Tuesday deals came from, right? Sort of thing. So that was okay, and they were playing around with that. But then Delta went and built a terminal at DFW Airport and made a push to go move from Atlanta into Dallas. American didn't like this. So they figured out, because they owned Sabre at the time and they were pretty clever technologically compared to Delta, who was getting most of their stuff from TWA PARS, right? Which was actually, they had Datus 2 that then merged with TWA PARS and became what's now WorldSpan. But American had that benefit. So that started as a very specific Dallas only defensive strategy to give people points to basically keep Delta out of American's hub.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
again, American wasn't native to Dallas. American Airlines used to be based in New York. DFW Airport got built based on the the prerequisite that American would relocate from New York to
Right. And
Dallas
that's where all
and
of a
that
sudden
sort of thing.
Love Field was shut down.
Right,
Uh,
right
with,
amendment. Yeah,
yep.
caged Southwest. So they wouldn't. So and they were basically setting up a program that they knew Delta could not respond to.
Right.
What they didn't figure, or what they didn't project, was that United sitting up there in Chicago going, holy cow, strategic decision by American. United owned basically what was probably at the time, it wasn't Covia at that point, but it was Apollo, basically, that then became Covia, and is now also part of Travelport, oddly enough. But they went out and they countered and they spent on the technology to go do that. And all of a sudden, wait a second, we were just doing this little tactical points thing, became this escalating sort of thing. And Bob Crandall very famously at one point said that if he really had a choice, he would have just run Sabre instead of the airline. Well, now you look at the profitability of the rewards programs, which fundamentally all they do is sell or hotel, sell airline seats or certain pennies per pennies per mile, pennies per point, and that's what they do, and they make tens of millions,
Mm-hmm.
billions of dollars on these programs. A fellow who worked for me at Sabre went back to the airline to run the Citibank Advantage card, and that was in the late 90s. They were netting $500 million a year in like 98, 99 off of that program.
Yeah.
It was much more profitable than the airline, but it doesn't really have to do necessarily with true loyalty, but it's gamification, people
It's
playing the
gamification.
game.
Now,
Another great one more thing on American, when they brought in executive platinum, huge, which really underlines the gamification. They figured, boy, these platinum members are great, but it's getting to the point where there are a lot of them. Let's put this really high select group, and maybe it'll be 30,000 people or something like that, that'll be in this ultra ultra high, executive platinum level. Another kind of new tier to achieve. What they didn't realize was a bunch of these platinum members wanted to get to that tier, shifted more of their business toward American, and all of a sudden they had 100,000 members, which was way too many. And then all of a sudden that threw wrenches in the works of the upgrades and things like that. Because again, all the platinum guys loved, I buy a coach ticket, I sit in the front. This is great. Doesn't get better than this. All of a sudden, all that fell apart.
And they had to cull the herd this past year too with this change from miles to dollars because they had too many platinum members in general, and so I was faced with that decision when I was 1,000 miles off from being gold to platinum. I was like, do I want to spend $700 to do it? And I'm like, no. I mean, so I'm one level less. Now they have zones where 1 is first class, 2 is executive platinum, 3 is platinum, 4 is gold, and then you go into the general roster. And for me, I'm still just behind.
Unwashed masses.
Unwashed masses, yeah. And so, for me, really the only rush to get on the plane, the only value proposition of my membership reward program is the ability to have better seat selection when I'm booking, and that I get on the plane soon enough. I don't have to worry about I'm sorry, all overhead baggage compartments are full, and now you have to check your carry-on. That's my only two happy parts about why I dedicate trying to do my business through American Airlines is because if I go to another carrier right now, I don't have those options, but I can guarantee you that if it gives me an offer when I'm booking, hey, for X number of dollars, do you want to have priority seating? Oh yeah. And do you want to have priority seat selection? Oh yeah. Because to me, that's the only value proposition of what I'm doing those things for is.
But even in Dallas, I would argue, even if Delta offered better deals than that, and United offered better deals, you would probably still stick with American because of the frequency.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
look at this Honolulu trip. I was able, because of all the travel I had been accumulating through American Airlines, I was able to bring my wife with me, and it cost us all of $11 because I cashed in points. So to that end, to me, the points are great for that, but we digress on that. But with the Duetto conversation in particular,
but then the question is, did you get the best value out of those points, right? Because that's a whole other game.
Actually, we did.
Converting them.
Worked out pretty good because the ticket price was far in excess of what the point price would have been. That was good. But to the Duetto conversation, for those who may not know, Duetto handles as revenue management programming for Red Lion, and Red Lion last year decided to forego their own membership reward program and instead collaborate with Expedia and have Expedia become their rewards monitor, their rewards thing. Now, we poo-pooed on it back then, and to a certain degree, I still poo-poo on it because you have surrendered a unique marketing tool for yourself by being, in my mind, semi-lazy. There is one huge benefit that it does provide, and for any revenue manager that does this, if you pull your arrivals roster list, and you, of course, have your OTA mix, which in some cases, on average, 25, 30, 35% of your incoming business is coming from OTAs. On average, I'm being very general when I say that. Those emails of the people coming in are mock emails. They're bullcrap emails. They are guest@hotels.com, guest@booking.com, whatever. They're unusable data sources is what I'm saying, because they're masking who really is the arriving guest other than their unique name and their confirmation number. Now, with the relationship Red Lion has, that information is not masked. They actually get to see all of their arrivals in the true form of whom they are. Why is this an advantage? Well, as I mentioned in a lot of my presentations that I do, you take this data, you want OTAs, you're paying OTAs the commission that you're paying them to drive first-line business, your first attempt business, getting people in, being higher in that mythical funnel of awareness and discovery. That's what the OTA spends all their money on doing. So driving your first edition business is a valuable relationship with the OTAs. That's the part that we enjoy. Having the OTA drive second level business or repeat business is a poo-poo on you because you're not doing your job as a marketer at that point. You should transition, change the channel, redistribute from the OTA being the source of that business, paying the commission it takes to do it, to making it a direct channel for you because it reduces your cost per overhead and improves your conversion value for them. And now, by allowing the OTAs to do your second generation business, you're really truly being lazy. And the idea of being able to have access to this data, like Red Lion does now, means that you have effective tools and marketing strategy for direct marketing and so forth that you can now use that data for. So to that end, it was a smart move because now 30% of your business is no longer opaquely driven. You can see who it is. and you can cater to them and maybe identify them so that they can book alternately to where they first booked through the OTA.
Right.
They didn't do that, which was the poo-poo on them because they didn't really take advantage of it. They didn't even rename their own membership program differently than the Expedia program. They literally just said, oh, yeah, fine, that's good. And they haven't done much with the data. Now, with Duetto, from what I understand, talking with them, they've realized this error in the ways, and they're improving on using this data more effectively to do channel shift. So to that end, Duetto is being very smart about redefining Redline's value proposition with Expedia. I don't know how long.
And the customer acquisition is a massive number of people, and potentially sorts, Redline higher up in Expedia's sort order, which should direct more. But so there are all sorts of little things like that. But again, it's you need to make that is a very, very important strategic decision. It isn't something you just flip on and flip off. So
and you need an infrastructure to handle that. You need to do incubation marketing. You need to take that contact that you now have and the value proposition of them being a previous guest from whatever channel they were driven by, and recreate the relationship to be more direct with you. They may or may not be staying at the same hotel, but they have brand identity with you is important.
Or tying back to the whole customer acquisition and the what was the article that was basically talking about kind of disingenuous marketing, right, on the attribution end of people kind of doing underhanded things. One of my pet peeves now is digital marketing agencies promoting kind of egregious return on ad spend things with these numbers, which I think in many cases is designed, to sound really impressive, but also to confuse the hoteliers in many cases. So you'll see them where they say, hey, let's do this. You're going to get a 500%, ROAS on this, or that's great. Well, okay, 5-1 return, that sounds pretty good, but that works out to a 20% commission. If you pay Booking.com 15%, that's 666% ROAS. And people don't make that connection. So the interesting thing in the hotel industry, and I just finished some research, meta-search for a paper that I'm putting together. And one of the most interesting outcomes was, and this is from some of the major hotel chains, some of the major tech providers, we're talking mostly about Google, but always wound up on TripAdvisor, that the instant booking relationships are contracted by the distribution folks, and it's a percentage of revenue, and it's done, and it's over here in silo A. The pay-per-click stuff is all the digital marketing and advertising guys. It's done over here. Because my question was, well, how do these two things kind of equate? How are they being managed? Anything? It's just like those guys don't talk to each other. And when you hear that from some of these guys who are doing tens of millions of dollars a month in this form of advertising, you just go, oh dear, that can't be good. Sort of thing. And they're because it's not informed. Then you've got revenue management and they're playing around with the rates, and you're like, wait a second, the rates go down, the bidding has to take that into consideration, and what's going on over here for that, and no, not really done.
Well, no, that's a discussion that we've always had meta-search discussions. I last year with Duetto, with Derbysoft and so forth.
I've got to take a very quick call. I will be max 3 minutes. It's the third time this individual is called. I will be right back.
You do that. I'm going to keep going with the conversation real quick. So our discussions with meta-search have been pretty profound in the sense of its usability and its value proposition compared to other channels of contribution. And what Robert's referring to in his discussion is that there is a method. There's meta-search on meta-search where third-party hotels or third parties such as the OTAs are actually actively bidding on each other's meta-search platforms, Expedia's and TripAdvisor and so forth. And what happens is you as the inventory provider are paying them the same commission value, even though they're now able to reduce their actual cost for distribution, where before you're paying them based on the business they were generating, and they would use whatever form that they needed to generate that business. A lot of it was in PPC spends on Google and Bing and so forth to generate the awareness of what inventory they had of yours in the market of interest of people searching. Now that's a higher cost in comparison to just paying for distribution within a meta-search channel where they're advertising yours and everyone else's inventory related to the advertising they're putting on the meta search. And that cost per acquisition goes down for them, but it doesn't go down for you. You're still paying them the same amounts of money. So they're able to marginalize a higher revenue success with you, with the product they're offering for you, using the meta search platforms, and not so much just necessarily PPC, but to Robert's point, those who are handling the campaigns for them on the PPC world are not actually handling the campaigns also in the meta search. So what you're getting is two different distributions in a competitive way for your product. Now, you would think this is a benefit to you because that means you're exposed in different platforms. But what it does create is prioritization that you don't show up for because you can't show up for both. You show up for either. And so it does diminish your actual impact of value, yet it doesn't diminish your actual cost, is what the point made for that. So when Robert gets back with us, I think we kind of hit that to a certain degree for it. When it comes to some of the other discussions in relationship to social media and what have you, there's a couple interesting things. We don't often as often as we did share tools, and there's an interesting tool that I'm using, and this is going to be directed more for the self-doers, the ones that are handling their own or are working with aspects that they don't have resources to do, so they kind of somehow have to streamline the very, very heavy workload associated with social media distributions and so forth. There is an article, I'm going to put the link into it, that's associated with social media. Came from eHotelier. Let me put this into the link string, and that's there. And this was an article on how the hospitality industry is embracing social media. Interesting article in one aspect that it's kind of a Mr. Obvious article, which is talking about, hospitality is now doing this, and this on different social media platforms. Well, yes, Mr. Obvious, that has been the case for a while. The unfortunate aspect of this is that they're not doing it well. They're approaching social media very similar to how they approach any other marketing strategy, which is our purpose is to promote our inventory and our availability of cost to that inventory. So it's rate and date, book, buy now, heads and beds. And social in its usability, its value proposition isn't about a hard sell. It doesn't mean that you don't have an action item that the people can, once they make the decision, actually purchase into it. It's a matter of that's not the message that you're giving us social media. Mr. Robert, thanks for coming back. I'm talking a little bit about
wrong, completely wrong.
Totally wrong. I already covered your meta search stuff. We're good with that. I threw in.
Sorry, I did a Tim Peter thing, putting family in front of this. I feel so bad about that.
Oh yeah, right. I think we're okay.
I almost hung myself there.
Right now, I threw up the article about the Mr. Obvious statement. I threw this in as not as tongue in cheek, but just as a topic generator.
Did you do the TripAdvisor
hospitality
thing, or
huh?
Which meta search? The TripAdvisor thing, or
no? I kind of I've already worked through it. I was talking about how the hospitality industry is embracing social media, and I threw that article in really just to be a conversation starter because the article itself is trite. And I'm not saying it's a bad article. I'm just saying that the article is kind of like, thank you, Mr. Obvious, first time listener, first time caller, long time listener. Yes, but as I pointed out earlier before you jump back on, was that hospitality has been engaging with social for a while. The problem is that they've been doing it backwards, because they're approaching it the same way they do any marketing strategy, which is rate and date. And social is completely not that. It's not that you don't have actual opportunity. You want to be able to always make sure that there's an opportunity for them once they make the decision and they get to their moment of ZMOT, zero moment of transaction, that there's a means to do it. However, that is not the purpose of the communication. The purpose of the communication is to enlighten and modify what their perspective is of you. And that comes through storytelling. It comes from topics that are relatable to what it is that you want to make sure that they understand so that they're in a position at the most peaked interest, usually in revenue marketing terms, the booking window, when people make that decision to acquire a date and rate that they want in a location that they want. And if you can apex your social stories and dialogues to coalesce with that same time frame, then all the dialogue about an event that you did weeks ahead of the actual event and weeks ahead of the actual booking window begin to come to a point that you begin to refer to the opportunity of doing something with your product at that time that people are in the process of deciding if they're going to book and where they're going to book at.
Right. Yeah, and a great example is, I'll just make something up. Dog lovers, right? That doesn't have anything necessarily to do with those. But again, a lot of this, the social engagement has to do with how you enhance your brand perception and provide relevant examples of saying, who you are as a business and what you believe in, what you like, and what you represent. The same way people do it on social media. So if you're dog lovers or whatever, yes, maybe you do things with the ASPCA and you sponsor a monthly adoption sort of thing, and you do that, and then all of a sudden, yes, you may be able to start enhancing that. And again, if you're a hotel in New York, maybe that's all geared to ultimately your evil business purpose is to expand your occupancy during the Westminster Kennel Club week
Right.
or something
Right.
like, I don't know, but again, if that's one of the things to say, hey, we believe this and you want to be here because we believe the same things that you do and we're interested in, some of it is expertise in the community, but a lot of it really comes down to what do you represent. And you get I still fall back. You look at Las Vegas, unbelievable casinos, every sorts of thing you can do. But a lot of, people go back to the ones that they wind up really liking. And it winds up being, in some cases, the casinos have it very much built on the casino hosts and the high rollers marketing and things like that, again, to kind of embrace these individuals and keep them going. It's like, I'm sorry you lost $500,000 this last weekend. Hey, how about going, trout fishing in Idaho, in a few weeks? And wouldn't that be great? Sort of thing. And that sort of stuff happens. But there's a whole other group of people who they love the hotel for what it represents, and they're taken care of and they're recognized when they go there, where in the larger properties, if you aren't a high roller, you probably aren't going to get recognized, and they love it. And it's their place, it's their home away from home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, the hotels need to understand that, and that works in Vegas, where if people come back and they're there once a quarter because they go in for, they play the, poker, their brains out on poker, once every quarter. That's great. They go back to the same spot. But again, if you're some sort of one and done sort of property where you really don't have that's the same thing, yeah, social media could be more tricky because you don't have specific relationships with that particular individual and nurturing that. But again, if you can nurture yourself as, hey, you have something that goes on, you provide transportation to the State Fair of Texas from way out in Irving or something, like, who knows what you do. But again, if that's a particular niche where you figured out, hey, we can get people to stay here because it's,
it's conveying the story. It's conveying your story without just talking about heads of rate. I was going to talk about, I don't know that we don't often talk about tools as much as we used to. We've kind of diverged from that. And I like to.
Yeah, you have fallen down on that, haven't you?
I have fallen down on the tools thing. I do want to mention one that I've started to use that, and this is more particular as I started talking about, is that for these that are doing the work themselves, or that this is a way of streamlining the work that they're feeling like they're burdened with. And there's an article I'm going to start writing for one of our friends, Dave, over at Tambourine, about the reality of why people are intimidated with digital marketing and for hospitality. And this tool kind of addresses some of it, where it's a combination of emails and it's a combination of social postings. And it is that it's a massive time consumption, especially even if you know what you're doing, it's still a massive time consumption to handle social media. Editorial calendars, storylines, timelines, posting dates, content needed, links building. There's a tremendous amount of work, regardless of how efficient you are at it.
But the shortcut that most hotels use is not doing any of that stuff, like those editorial calendars.
Or hiring agencies that really just skim local information and
get an intern working for free.
Let an intern be your voice for your industry on the. But besides from the negatives of all those, there's an actual app that I'm starting to use that takes what you're putting as content on your site, and aka specifically postings on your blog or posts for your website, especially if you're WordPress, and it scrapes that off your site and creates 12 incubated postings over the course of a month, or a month, but of course of the year. It pre-schedules them. It's incubation.
For repost, right? Okay.
Right. Well, it doesn't repost. What it does do is it creates 9 variants of your content. It'll find whatever images. It'll do variable images. You can change what image you want on each posting. It'll take different snippets of the content you've written. You can change whichever one you want to use for the postings, and it automatically schedules it on a progressive date schedule, starting at whatever date you tell it to, forward for 12 months.
So are these social? These are social postings relating to the blog
Twitter,
content.
LinkedIn, G+, Facebook
Right.
and Pinterest are the ones that the
Right.
platform goes to. You
Okay.
connect your accounts to this platform, and
Mhm.
it uses those platforms to send out on this predetermined made schedule that you indicate what time you want to start it.
Are you
And what
going to reveal the name of this platform?
getting there, and it
Oh.
also allows you to it'll scrape hashtags off of, it'll look at your content and find hashtags that are related to the content, and you select up to 3 of them out of it that you think the hashtags are related to, that it'll incorporate into the
Right.
postings for Twitter,
Okay.
Facebook, and all the rest of it. It's called Missing Letter, and I'm going to type it out because it's actually not, that's the phonics sound, but of course with all the URLs in the world, it is Missing
Okay.
LETT_R. That's the name of the app. And it's of course missingletter.com.
Yeah, because if you type missing letter in, you get crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
Crossword puzzle sites, which is
Should be that one. That should be the link for it. It's an app. The reason why I picked it up is I don't know if you follow a platform called AppSumo.
Oh, yeah.
It's a platform that does introductories to these types of platforms for ridiculously low price. This one is normally, I don't know, $18 to $50 a month to run, $78 a month to run, and they're offering it for $39 lifetime.
Wow.
And so you get these deals and $39 and boom, you have it. And I buy a lot of it knowing that I may not be using it now, but I can use it in the future. And I started using it for my own benefit to it, where all these postings for our live show or podcasts, the Monday Marketing Minutes and everything else, then gets into this incubation phase where it'll post on Twitter, hey, there's this blah, blah, blah statement, blah, 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 hashtags, blah, blah, blah link. And then, it'll do another one a few days from another one from a couple weeks from now, another one a month from now, another one from, and it does this progression so that I'm constantly rotating content in the news on social platforms.
Right. Yep.
And it's a shortcut way of not, because part of the burden of this is even in your best scheduling for social posts. And this doesn't replace editorial calendars or what you do with editorial calendars. What it does do is it creates a prevalent incubated, and for people who aren't familiar with that term incubation, you're really seeding interest over a long period of time. You're keeping a relevant content going forward on topics that people find interesting. And it incubates their interest. It grows their interest in you as they come across and discover these kind of postings. So this software, this tool, is great for hotels that if you want to start conveying your message, you start putting content on your site about events, value propositions, your destination, aspects that you want to make sure that are making you differentiate from that of your competitors, regardless of your hotel type. This program will take that data automatically, create these posts, and you simply go through, confirm the hashtags, confirm the images, confirm the content that it's pulling from, confirm the schedule, and say launch. And now for the next year, you don't have to worry about this process going along with this particular content post. It will post it as you have it. So you augment your editorial calendar with this kind of stuff. These things, your editorial calendar, you're going to do a storyline about your events based on the business cycle that it represents. Obviously, if there's a festival in June, then you should have already been talking about it a month ago in your social platforms. Yeah. And so forth and so on.
Or whatever the booking window, ample time before the booking window kicks in. This isn't first. That's the first time I've heard of it. Buy it now. So
and this is not that solution. This is to keep your presence in market about things that are related to you because you wrote about them. This is your topic discussion on the joys of a particular event through a time cycle of a whole year. We're in the middle of winter, and they may have stumbled across one of these postings that was your happy discussion about summertime and your location, and it resonates with a person that says, wow, you know what, next summer, maybe I should look at going there. Or that sounds like a really cool event. Let me put it on my calendar that I might be interested in looking at that when it comes around next year. And of course, there's ways to modify and control this platform. But like I said, for AppSumo, AppSumo, you can go to the site and buy this thing for $39 lifetime. And it gives you massive usage, 10 websites, blah, blah, blah. Not that you need all the variations, but it gives you the ability to post 10 contents per website per week, which is way more than most people will need to post stuff up for. And once you set it up, it'll also do it automated. So you don't even have to bother with this. As you post things, it'll set up, and then you just go in and confirm what it is that it's ready to post for. You say, that's fine. Images, hashtags are good. Content's right. Schedule. And you now create this machine that the purpose of all this stuff is that whether you're sleeping or awake 24 hours a day, your site and what these postings do for you makes you business. That's what this is good for. So interesting tool for those who are interested. Like I said, Mr. Robert, you might find great use of it.
Is AppSumo's basic business model that it is always 39, but they do a feature?
It's usually around that range, 39 to 49.
$39 for life, for life, and that's.
There was a great video editor I picked up that for $39, which was awesome because even though I use Final Cut Pro on Apple, it's very cumbersome because it's so advanced that there's so much stuff I don't use with it. I have to get through to get to the parts I do. And there's a easier version that I bought for $39, which was normally $100 a month.
And generally individual license sort of thing, just for maybe one website or something. Depending on how they fence the stuff in. But
I got a PT engine off of it that does heat maps for websites for $25.
Wow,
neat stuff. But anyway, so for those who don't know, AppSumo is a great source for looking for those things. Sign up and subscribe. That way they notify you. Yes, you need more email junk when it comes to email, but if you're in the mood of finding solutions and tools at an affordable price, AppSumo is a great place to go do it for. We are at the 2-hour mark. I hit most of everything of all that I was hoping to hit, which is great. Thank you, Mr. Robert. It's funny how whether we have 2 people, 1 person, 4 people, or 6 people, we can still go through 2 hours.
Warren, I think the bottom line is that for both yourself and me, we will fill the time allotted.
Oh yes. Oh, we have no problem talking. It's our joy. It's our skill. Which is why when
3 days filibusters, not a problem.
Put me on stage, baby. I got 3 days for you.
That's right. I can talk. The only thing I wanted to mention, and we'll make this short, is TripAdvisor is doing a freaking user experience overhaul, unlike any other. They're finally getting it right, in my opinion. Now, Lauren, if you go to TripAdvisor, what do you see for your home page?
You talking about the customization stuff here? Hold on. Let me
no. Just straight, because the thing. They're doing some intense personalization sorts of changes. But what do you see when you go to TripAdvisor.com? What does your homepage now look like?
Oh my! Look at this, Hawaii.
It's Tahiti, right?
Yeah. No, I got Waikiki all over the place because I was just there, and my mobile knew I was there.
Okay, but does it say find your ideal hotel at the lowest price with a?
Oh yeah.
Large image, right? Large hero image, that sort of thing. Very, very clean design. None of this goes search for crap and then separate things to go search for dates. And you go down the list, and the whole homepage is now broken into categories, and each category has 4 images, so you can look at recently viewed hotels related to items you view. Mine is hotels with great views. Private hotels, value hotels, centrally located. All these different options, very, very graphically oriented, very clean, very mobile friendly.
Yeah, right? Hotels with free Wi-Fi, hotels with tours. Right. And it's funny because, obviously my TripAdvisor app knew that I was in Hawaii because it started popping up on push notifications. Hey, you're near such and such, blah, 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 blah. So it knew I was there. Right. So it took, as you said, the information said, now, whenever I come to the website, and I'm on my laptop now, not my phone, but it knows who I am, poof. Right. All that information is about Oahu, Waikiki, what to do, where to go.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. Yep. Well, okay. So I'm going to put in, because we haven't plugged HSMAI and the Revenue Optimization Conference, which is going to be at the end of June. I believe it's June 28th, something like that. But high tech is that week. Let's just say in here, put Toronto, and maybe come in on the 26th, which would be a Monday, and leave maybe on Thursday, which is the 29th. Right? And if you do a search, mine defaulted to 1 room, 2 guests sort of thing, and you search, all of a sudden you see a very clean and different listing. Lots of white space, ability to change dates very easily at the top, Toronto hotels, and there are sort by 4 categories. And this is where the personalization really comes in. The first category is just traveler ranked. That's for everybody, but mine doesn't default to that. Now, I'm not sure, did yours default to traveler ranked or to best value?
Mine, unfortunately, started making you stutter because I'm a one browser too far on my
Oh,
bandwidth.
okay. Oh, okay.
Because I got the other
Okay.
ones running, and when I pull that up, I think the churn on it started making you stutter, and I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll just close it. So
Okay.
I'm not following you down
Well,
this journey, but I believe you because
anyway, well, when you do it on the left, instead of all those check boxes, it's you have a little bit of a map if you want to see that, and then very cleanly little search criteria: price per night, amenities, locations, all accordioned up and closed, and then the best value gives you hotels ranked using exclusive TripAdvisor data, including traveler ratings, prices, booking popularity, location, and personal user preferences. So if you go and search, like I did last week when I kind of stumbled on this, and I was actually speaking with somebody about these changes, we happened to pick a Hampton Inn. All of a sudden, we went down the rabbit hole where Hiltons are getting presented, and my recommended order, which was like #1 hotel of these in the city, actually changed on the fly during the session, which was a little disorienting. But anyway, very, very clean. In my particular case, the Four Seasons Hotel Toronto is #1 in the city. But now what they have is they've got three listings, um, which and one call to action. This is on your destination page. View deal, and then for Four Seasons, it happens to be Expedia 469. Then next to it, you have 3 pay-per-click listings. Well, and you don't know if that's a pay-per-click or instant booking. Doesn't matter anymore. It's just one call to action. The how, who's getting paid what, through what method is now in the plumbing somewhere, which is good. So cleans it up. And you see that there are 3 other rates: TripAdvisor, Hotwire, and Travelocity. The TripAdvisor listing is actually the instant booking listing, which is now at the top of what would normally be kind of the pay-per-click area.
yeah.
So that's very interesting,
You know
very
what we should
clean.
do? You know what we should do on the next show for next week 92 is that with some of the team back also with us is that we should do some swap screen sharing. Like we all go
Just do
look,
a deep, yeah,
and
that's
then
true.
we all
Yep.
screen share differently to show how
Good
each of
point.
us are personalized when our responses to this.
Yep. Yeah, that's good, because then the interesting part was when you get on the property page, again, very, very cleaned up the booking widget. There's one call to action, Expedia, boom, and then here you've got all the deals, on pay-per-click, so they're all up there. Then there's a little overview, but then there's a section that says rooms, and it's accordioned in, and it has the date sensitivity. You go, well, wait, show available rooms. When you click on that, that is now instant booking, and it's like, oh, this is very interesting. TripAdvisor is partnered with Hotels.com. So in this particular case, Hotels.com is using instant booking. You hit select book it on the next page in one shot, and you're done.
Right. Click.
Very, very, very.
I don't want to rush through this one because you are making some incredibly excellent points, and I think I do want to make the TripAdvisor one back.
Let's go through it next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add it to next week because honestly, this is a huge shift for TripAdvisor, and it's a huge impact of its value proposition. And I don't want to just by the way, this happened and boom, this.
Oh no. This is, and there has been no press on it. There was
they went and changed. That's it.
Skift article that talked a little bit about. Yeah, but massive UI change for better,
right.
And then I'll say for next week, what trip is next, but tremendous pressure from Wall Street, and for years it's been you've got a crappy user interface. They cleaned it up and made it really, really actionable.
Let's do that for next week. I'll make sure we get added for it. And you remind me by sending it to your topic interest over as well. I do want to conclude with not conclude, but one of the things I don't want to lose is early in the beginning of the show I talked about Snapchat. Snapchat is now Ad Manager on Snapchat used to be for the big guns, the Coca-Colas, Home Depots of the world. As of next month, they'll be opening up their Ad Manager program specifically just for Snapchat to everybody. It is an interesting model. It's not something you say, I'll just do what I do elsewhere. It's not. Snapchat's unique as to its market strategy, as to what you do on it. So we'll talk more about it when it comes live. We'll bring up an example of it. So we'll talk about it. The other is, ironically, on the email
that could
I
get
sent
very ugly. That could get very ugly very fast.
So yeah, very quickly. So one other thing was in the email I sent out to everybody as an invitation, I talked about the fact we're going to talk about Rock, and we didn't do any of it today, except for your mention of it being in Toronto. For everyone to be aware of, for HSMAI, they're doing their revenue optimization conference, Rock, always in collusion with High Tech, which is the hospitality industry technology events. What is it? What is the tech part of it? Hospitality industry technology events conference.
Hospitality wait. Oh, High Tech?
Yeah.
The actual High Tech?
Hospitality
I can
industry technology events conference or
something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, it is the premier place that all technology is associated with hospitality, anything from housekeeping equipment to work equipment softwares. It's really kind of been overtaken in recent years on the stuff we're talking about, digital marketing, platform usage, our revenue management, operating systems, and so forth. But there's still a lot of technology about making employee cards and door locks and TV centers and so forth that are in there as well. But it's in Toronto this year. It's June, the latter part of June. Do you have the dates in front of you, Mr. Robert?
Yeah, I think it's the week of the 26th is the best.
Now, right now, we're in discussions with HSMAI that we did what we do with the digital conference in February in New York, that we go up as press and literally cover the show live. Not that we're projecting or broadcasting what's being done on stage, but doing post-exit interviews with people that had been on stage, topics they discussed about, general demeanor and feedback from those who are attending. We had a lot of fun with the digital conference, HSMAI Digital Conference in February, doing the very same thing. I believe we have an open invitation. We just have to make sure we understand our role in it. With HSMAI covering Rock. High Tech in itself is an amazing proposition to go see all the varieties of technology.
Lauren, you need to figure out, we need to go do live from the showroom floor. We couldn't do it on a Friday because they're closed, but we could do go stop by some booths.
Which we would do on Facebook Live. Yeah, we could do that. So with that in mind, we'll get more details about it, but be mindful that if you haven't made arrangements for Rock, all the hotels that are already connected to the conference are sold out, so you don't have to go one radiant farther for that. Toronto's an amazing city if you've never been. If you have been, you know what I'm talking about. And it's going to be beautiful weather at that time, usually that time of year for it. It is the first time that High Tech and Rock are outside of the continental United States. So we'll see how that impacts attendance and participation. That's be interesting. We have an opinion of that from Mr. Edward St. Ange with Flip2 as to his lack of participation this year because of that. So there are varying positions on it. We'll talk more about it, but please make sure that you are aware of it. We were going to talk about what you should be prepared for Rock. We'll do that more so next week, which will only be a month away from Rock at that point. So we'll cover that. With that, I have to say that we are at 2 hours and 12 minutes.
Yeah. So we need to say goodbye.
Robert, yeah. If people want to find out more about you and what it is that you do, where do they find you for that?
rockcheetah.com, or you can always reach me at Robert K. Cole on all forms of social media.
And for me, hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com is where you find all of our data, more particularly for the archives of the show, hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live will be the links to all of ours. This is show number 91, so you have a massive library to go through if you're interested in what we talk about. Or as Mr. Edward likes to point out of 2 hours of conversation, there might be 2 minutes of interest. We do hit some great points. We make some great statements. Actually, it's unfair for us. We do hit some great topics, and we are able, luxuriously able to discuss down the rabbit holes on some of these things, which is the purpose of the show, and to share what's current and relevant in hospitality in support of HSMAI and its membership and those who are interested in the hospitality industry. So for that, anybody wants to find me, you can find me at that website or email me at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. Our YouTube channel, which has the live broadcast of this, is YouTube Lauren Gray. Also, it is on Facebook Live. Look for the page Hospitality Digital Marketing. On Periscope, which is my Periscope handle at Lauren Gray, which is also my Twitter handle. So with that, show number 91 comes to an end. Show number 92 next week. We look like we have a guest speaker, which I'll finalize in the next couple of days, and we'll broadcast out those for people to know it. And we may have some of our cohorts in crime, Mr. Tim Peter, Mr. Edward St. Andre Hawley, or Mr. Stewart with us next week. Robert, as not to say that I missed them, but I thoroughly enjoyed being with just you today. It was a lot of fun.
Thank God those guys weren't on here. And we'll see. We'll see if they watch the entire show and then call us on this at the very end, which I bet they won't.
That's right. So with that, thank you so much, Mr. Robert, and for everyone else that watched us on all of the platforms. Again, we simulcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. If you caught us in any of those and we didn't dialogue with you where you chatted or something, you should always join us at bit.ly/2HDM show 91 is where this was from. Next week, of course, is the same link string, only 92. So I hope you join us and sign up for it then. With that, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Robert. We'll talk to everyone next week.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.